You should be both very excited and equally as apprehensive about buying a used IONIQ 5 because while these things won multiple Car of the Year awards all around the world when they were brand new, and thanks to the typical extreme EV depreciation, they can seem like absolute bargains on the used market. But there can be a few concerns.
For example, have you heard about all of the battery and electronic failures?
Not to mention the exterior, interior and tech concerns, or the complaints about driving or just living with them. Luckily this is ReDriven and we take you through all the pros and cons of used cars, so hopefully you don't buy a shit one. When it comes to these things, how about we start with Austin Powers? ReDriven is powered by Wipertech, more on them later. In the meantime, scan that QR code. Remember this scene? Well, that could be you at every shopping centre car park because this thing has the turning circle basically of the Titanic. This thing has nearly a 3-metre long wheelbase, and look, that's fantastic for interior space, we'll get to that in a second, but it can make tight situations a nightmare because it's got hardly any steering lock. But I tell you what, thank God the camera system in this is excellent because without it, parking could be a real nightmare. Also, thank God the parking tech is great because some of the safety systems, yeah, not so much. See, many owners complain about overly sensitive safety calibrations. You just get beeps and boops all the bloody time. And annoyingly, before the 2025 update, you just couldn't turn them off permanently. Luckily, with the post-2025 update, you can assign all this to one button and just turn all this bloody stuff off. Also, the 2025 update tweaked the suspension tune and calibration. Actually, for the Aussie models, the suspension was pretty much updated every year up until 2025. Although I don't know why they needed to. This is an early car and the suspension is really good. Like, you could get super picky on it being a little bit on the firm side, but overall, maybe age has sort of softened it up just nicely because I think the suspension and ride and handling are fantastic. But the overwhelming thing that you might find in one of these, if you've never driven or been in one before, is just the sense of refinement. This thing punches so far above its weight in terms of just almost a feeling of like premium kind of car levels of driving. Also, it always feels just so stable and planted on the road. Actually, the all-wheel drive models, they have outrageous levels of grip, but even in these rear-wheel drive models, this is rear-wheel drive, it's always so sure-footed. Also, the I-pedal mode, which is basically where you drive the car using purely the accelerator pedal, you rarely have to brake. It's so beautifully calibrated, you get used to it instantly. Although the only annoying thing is you have to re-enable it every time you restart the car, but doing so is easy. You just hit that paddle and you re-enable I-pedal, easy. Also, thanks to the wonders of EV and instant torque, the levels of performance, super impressive. Like, this is the base model and you floor it. So like overtaking, pulling into traffic, always an absolute breeze. The N model, they're in a whole different realm of motoring when it comes to sheer performance, but really the IONIQ 5N really deserves its very own video. The problem though with all this torque and excessive weight, these things tip the scales at around about 2 tons. They can have quite the appetite for tyres, not just on the performance N models either, right across the board. Also, in some of the models, the wheels protrude outside the actual tyre, so it's really easy to curb the wheel. Also, the terrible turning circle doesn't help that at all. Actually, it does seem odd that not every model came with auto dipping mirrors as standard, considering the cost of the car when they were brand new. Also, from 2023, some of the flagship models came with digital wing mirrors, and from 2025, depending on where you're watching this, many of the models can be optioned with the digital wing mirrors. Why you'd want to replace this style of mirror with a camera is completely beyond us though. Why? They suck to use, they're going to be more expensive to fix and repair or replace when they inevitably break or someone smashes them off. Mirrors didn't need to be reinvented. This works just fine. Stop adding extra products to cars for the sake of it. Stop it. But one of the most welcome changes for that 2025 update was the inclusion of a rear wiper. Now, this was one of the biggest complaints from the owners because apparently the design of the rear of the car just attracts crap and road grime and dirt and all sorts of things like a bloody magnet. In fact, one owner that we spoke to, who has owned dozens of cars, highly recommends budgeting for extra car washes because this thing just gets dirty from behind like you wouldn't believe. Although maybe getting dirty from behind is kind of your bag. I mean the car, obviously get your mind out of the gutter. Don't be disgusting. Actually, another complaint with the windscreen wipers is that owners claim the auto function is absolutely crap. It can just be completely random and it really struggles in very light rain, like we're experiencing today. And the blades are genuinely shit. But you know what blades aren't shit? They're WiperTech blades. They're the only ones we use because they are simply some of the best. And when you get some via that QR code or the link below, you're going to get 15% off and free express shipping. How good's that? Although, you're going to get them completely for free if you do what Justin from Colton Classic has done and lend us your car to feature. Because if we do that, we're going to give you a set for free as a thank you present. To volunteer your car, there's a link down below. That 2025 update also sorted out another common complaint from the owners, which was the fact that Apple CarPlay and Android Auto had to be a wired connection. As of 2025, it became a wireless connection. The problem is though, as of 2025, there are more reports of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto dropping out or having connection issues. And apparently, your phone repairing to the car can be a bit of a faff as well.
Number 10, American Motors Corporation. Nowadays, it feels like US companies merge every other week. In 1954, though, it was jarring to see Nash Kelvinator Corporation merger with Hudson Motor Car Company, forming American Motors Corporation.
At this point, it looks like the rebels are going to outlast the teachers.
At $355 million, it was the largest corporate merger for a period. Even with that sizable amount, American Motors was still only America's fourth largest auto brand, trailing behind Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. Despite some success, AMC struggled to compete with the Big Three, eventually being acquired by Chrysler in 1979. The AMC name would persist until 1988, when it was renamed Jeep Eagle Corporation before completely merging into Chrysler 2 years later. How fitting a company born from a merger ended with another merger.
They're tough. Tougher than ever before.
Even the toughest American cars can't beat big business. Number 9. Gulf Oil.
Everything we do makes driving better for you.
Commencing in 1901, this big oil company's main backers were William Larimer Mellon and his uncle Andrew. What started with a $10,000 investment developed into one of the Seven Sisters oil companies. But by the early 40s, Gulf Oil was among the 10 largest US manufacturing companies. By the end of the 70s, it could still be found in the top 10.
You guys certainly give good service. Thanks. We make it a point to give good service. And we're competitive in our prices, too.
In 1985, though, Gulf Oil merged with one of its fellow Seven Sisters, Standard Oil of California, being rebranded as Chevron. At the time, it was a record deal of more than $13 billion.
In today's style of living, yes is the way to go, and Chevron says yes.
The Gulf Oil brand name still exists with various companies buying the trademark. By the early 60s, Coleco was officially a toy company, making plastic playthings in pools. After a failed experiment with snowmobiles, Coleco entered the electronic realm with Telstar and ColecoVision.
ColecoVision, the only system you'll ever need.
Although the video game crash came as a blow, Coleco had another life preserver. However, the original Titan that inspired a Pennsylvania skyscraper no longer casts its massive shadow.
Number 8, Pontiac Fiero.
Holy smokes, what is this? It's a Pontiac Fiero.
The tagline for the Pontiac company may have been, "We build excitement." But in the case of the Fiero, a better slogan might have been, "We build trouble."
We build excitement.
That's because these popular cars were known for exploding or catching fire, thanks to malfunctioning connecting rods. These rods would break in cars that were either dangerously low on oil or driven extremely recklessly, resulting in hundreds of customer complaints and nearly a dozen injuries.
Fiero, fuel-injected, economical, and only from Pontiac.
Despite this, the Fiero still has plenty of fans on the secondhand market. The DeLorean DMC-12 was named after the company's founder, ex-GM exec John DeLorean, and was a definition of style over substance.
You don't do a thing like this for the money, you do it because you love doing it.
For all its looks, the DeLorean DMC-12 wasn't very fast, nor could it handle very well. What it did have was those two bitchin' gull-wing doors. Doors that would lock whoever was inside, should their DeLorean roll over. Beyond this, the DeLoreans had alignment issues that resulted in excessive, dangerous tire wear, poor alternators, and a fiberglass frame that was simply not designed with high-speed accidents in mind.
Drive the DeLorean. Live the dream today.
Number 10, Circuit City.
Welcome to Circuit City, where service is state of the art.
Founded in 1949 under the name Ward's Company, Circuit City was one of the most popular consumer electronics stores in the United States. During their peak, the chain boasted more than 550 stores across the country, offering plenty of electronic goods and services. Number 9. A&P. The Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company existed from 1859 to 2015. Known to most customers simply as A&P, there was a time when they were a huge player in the grocery business.
We built a brand new feeling at A&P.
From a few retail shops selling tea and coffee in New York, the company blossomed after being acquired by George Huntington Hartford. From there, over much time, it became a full-on grocery store, which would eventually have roughly 16,000 locations.
A&P pledges guaranteed value.
We guarantee the quality of all our meat and deli products. Produce too, double your money back.
We also guarantee the lowest advertised prices.
However, by the 1970s, the stores had become conceptually stale and plagued by bad customer service. Number 5. Wags. What do you think of when the Walgreens brand of pharmacy and convenience chains comes to mind? How about sit-down dining? Well, that was the idea behind Wags, a franchise of 24-hour diner-type establishments owned and operated by the Walgreens folks.
Today's a great day for Wags.
They were around primarily during the 1970s and 80s and tried like hell to compete with other big names in that market, such as Denny's. Unfortunately for Walgreens, the idea of eating in a place that shares similar iconography as the place where you grab cold medicine didn't take. Number 2. Burger Chef.
Nowhere else but Burger Chef, nowhere else but Burger Chef.
You may be very familiar with all the main names in the fast food burger wars out there, from McDonald's and Wendy's to Burger Chef. Wait, you've never heard of Burger Chef?
You're gonna love our burgers. Open wide America, you never can forget. You get more to like at Burger Chef.
Well, at one time, this fast food brand was so popular that it had its sights set firmly on those golden arches. One of the reasons for its success? It was the first chain to offer a kids' meal.
There's more to like at Burger Chef.
You're incredibly better!
The company even tried suing McDonald's when the Happy Meal was introduced back in '79, claiming the idea was too close to its own. Number 3, Radio Shack.
So much more than just a store. The best in America, Radio Shack. Nobody compares to Radio Shack.
The humble beginnings of Radio Shack began back in 1921. The company focused its sales strategy on radio and electronics hobbyists. For decades, this gave them a lucrative market to fill, and interest in electronics eventually grew even further with the new computer and video game age. It was also Radio Shack that produced the famous TRS-80, one of the first widely available home computers.
Let your children discover tomorrow's technology today. The TRS-80, the biggest name in little computers. Only at Radio Shack.
But much like many other retailers, their popularity declined with the rise of online shopping and fewer hobbyists to buy their wares.
Though perhaps more damaging has been the retailer's failure to attract younger shoppers.
By 2017, the company had gone bankrupt and was no longer the giant retailer it once was.
But what's so wrong with a wired connection? I mean, when you use wireless and have it on a wireless charging pad, your phone heats up or it takes forever to actually charge it and you have these connection issues. Is plugging your phone in really that much of an inconvenience? But regardless of the car being a pre or post update, I have to give a bit of a shout out to some of the ergonomics in here. The fact that for the screen you have this little shelf to lean your hand on, the EV6 does the same thing. It's such a small thing, but it makes such a massive difference. You can actually kind of get some tactility out of the screen. Bloody genius. Although, it's then annoying that your air conditioning controls don't have a little ledge to lean on at all. These are just touch-sensitive buttons on a bloody screen. It's nice that you've got an actual physical volume control knob and some of the main functions have buttons, but for your HVAC, so frustrating. Also, if this thing gets hit with direct sunlight, like if you've got one of the models with a big panoramic roof, it can be near impossible to see what any of the actual functions are, so you can be kind of operating it completely blind. Speaking of driving blind, if you wear polarized glasses, the driver monitor system can really struggle to see your eyes and you get inundated with more beeps and boops and warnings. Also, where the speed readout is on the instrument cluster, depending on where you sit in terms of seating position, it can be obscured. For me, no problems whatsoever. Also, quick tip, if you ever need to replace the windscreen, just stick with the OEM glass, okay? Aftermarket glass can be a nightmare to recalibrate the head-up display and even some of the safety systems. Also, a frustration with many EVs, because they're so quiet, any tiny rattle or weird cabin noise is almost amplified. Normally these annoying little sounds are drowned out by the engine noise. And in these, like many EVs, yeah, they can be guilty of a few rattles here and there, although in this particular car, none whatsoever. We've been over some rough roads and, shut up. We've been over some rough roads and it's silent, except for all the beeps and boops and shit. But on the IONIQ 5s that do have some rattling issues, you might hear sounds coming from the head-up display, around the dashboard, the steering column, the steering wheel, the door cards, around the rear seats, around the base of the front seats, actually pretty much everywhere. But the most common area for complaints is actually back here, the tailgate and around the struts. Really common issue for rattling. Now, some owners have had it fixed under warranty, that's great, but then other owners have had to take the car back to the dealership 3 to 4 times because the rattles just keep coming back. But there are fixes for this. Jump on the owners groups and the forums, there's plenty of tutorials on how to fix the rattles. Also, just on the owners groups and the forums, the community around this car is so supportive, especially on the 5N. We'll talk about them more when we feature the 5N, but join the owners groups, they're bloody legends. Also, while we're back here, these things punch above their weight in terms of sheer cargo space in the boot. Plus, you can slide these rear seats forward, which obviously reduces the amount of legroom you have, but it expands the amount of cargo space back here. I still think it's a really good party trick. And this is interesting, even though this shares pretty much exactly the same platform underneath as a Kia EV6 and the Genesis GV60, this does have the larger boot. In fact, it's larger than plenty of other cars in this class, like the Polestar 2. This has more cargo space. Although Tesla Model Y, that's still the winner in terms of practicality. Also, these rear-wheel drive models have a much larger frunk than the all-wheel drive models, thanks to no motor taking up space here. And as far as living with it and spaces for all of your crap up front, outrageously good. There's not a glove box. It's like a glove cave and it's a drawer. Look at this, it's so cool and it's massive. Huge amount of storage down here. Cup holders have the little, fingery things to hold one of my small pretentious coffees in there. Also on some models, this entire center console can slide forward and aft to give you even more floor space. Heaps of storage under here. You got your wireless charging pad there, more storage here. Inside the armrest, there's more storage. Plus, the amount of floor space is enormous. Really good sized door bins. Okay, there's a lot of hard, scratchy plastics going on, which is a little disappointing, can feel a little bit cheap, but on the flip side, it's incredibly resilient. In the doors themselves, this isn't exactly storage, but you could maybe pop something down there if you want. But a complaint from some of the owners, there's no specific sunglasses storage as such. I'd normally agree with them, but guys, come on. There are so many nooks and crannies in this thing, surely you can find somewhere to put your sunnies. And as far as actually just living with this interior, absolutely fantastic. I've lived with a whole bunch of IONIQ 5s and they're just so intuitive to use. The entire infotainment system is just wonderful. The seat comfort, fantastic, great levels of adjustability as well. A few owners did mention that really tall people kind of find that you do feel like you're sitting on the car rather than in it because you can't quite get the seat as low as you might like. Personally, I think it's a fantastic seating position. Also, apparently the lumbar support can seem to favor shorter people rather than taller people. I don't know about that. Again, I think these seats are ultra comfortable. Although there are a few complaints on the owners groups regarding the resilience of some of these soft touch materials on the door cards. Apparently these can mark and scratch really easily. Also, where the seatbelts kind of hit the B pillar, this can mark up a little bit as well. But look, overall, the quality is outstanding. Like everything just feels so nice to actually touch and use. And design-wise, I think it's the perfect balance of being a little bit kind of futuristic, perfect for an EV. But again, it's just everything is intuitive and just easy to live with. Now, as far as practicality in the back seat goes, you've got a little cubby hole here. You've got nets on the backs of the seats in case you go fishing and need to keep your fish somewhere. Door bins that you can actually get to if you have legs and the door is shut. pull down armrest with 2 cup holders here, and that's about it for actual practicality. And as far as features go, you've got your own air vents there, you've got more USB ports and some very sexy ambient lighting. Also, I'm exactly 15 centimeters taller than celebrity IONIQ 5 owner and Bollywood icon SRK. This isn't my driving position. Have a look at the amount of space I've got. Like, copious amounts of knee and foot room. Like, there's so much room for activities. No transmission tunnel, so even if you're in the middle, there's plenty of room there. Also, even though this car doesn't have the panoramic roof, it still feels so airy and spacious in here. With the panoramic roof though, it feels enormous inside. There can be a problem with it though. It lets so much light in that the cooling system, so it's cool when you get in, but plenty of owners claim that the roof can be actually a nightmare in hot Aussie summers. Also, on some of the really early models, they could have some issues with some of the glass cracking and maybe even shattering, not just for the roof, but also these side windows and the rear hatch. Luckily, dealerships were very, very quick to replace all this stuff under warranty. Although, just check through the owners groups and the forums on the kind of service you might receive at the various Hyundai dealerships, because apparently it can be very hit and miss. And the same goes for the paint quality, especially on the matte finish cars. The matte finish is apparently a bit of a nightmare to maintain, and it can mark really, really easily, and requires kind of specific ways of washing and cleaning. Also, a few owners have complained about the front bar paint chipping really easily. Also, a few owners complained of just some paint discrepancies from the dealership and even some etching on the glass. It's weird. Also, the stupid door handles that protrude like this. Why couldn't they just have a normal door handle? It's like the bloody mirrors. Like, these things have worked perfectly fine for decades and they've got to go and stuff around with it. Stop it. But look, the complaint with these from owners isn't that they're unreliable. They're actually quite good, unlike certain Teslas out there. The problem is when the car's unlocked, they protrude out like this. And for some, it can be an invitation just to get in the car or maybe try to steal it. However, there is a solution. There is pieces of shit from stealing your car. We just recommend kind of going old school and getting a little Faraday pouch for your keys. Also, if you're thinking the car's BlueLink system can solve this issue, well, these scumbags have been known to cut the 4G antenna, and that just completely destroys the car's GPS tracking. But the solution for this, an Apple AirTag or an aftermarket tracker hidden somewhere in the car, that could be the solution. But let's say one of these assholes does manage to steal your car, or how far are they going to get before they need to recharge it? Well, look, obviously this is going to vary a lot depending on which model you're looking at. Here in Australia, we've primarily had 4 different power outputs, dual or single motor, being either all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. And even though the WLTP range claim is extremely optimistic, in the real world, the actual range isn't too bad. Across the owners groups, and excluding the 5N models, the absolute worst range we could find was about 270 kilometers, but that was primarily freeway driving, which is not an EV's favorite scenario. In fact, for every 10 kilometers over 100k an hour, you're losing 8 to 10% of your range. And then around town, the worst we could find was about 340 k's worth of range, and the best was over 500. And really, think about it, like how often are you ever really gonna need more than 340 kilometers of range between charging? And not only that, thanks to the car's vehicle-to-load tech, you can power various appliances from the car. In fact, one owner that we spoke to charged his home's fridge, freezer, and various small appliances during a 10-day blackout from his fully charged IONIQ 5. Plus, thanks to it having an 800-volt architecture, you can charge these things from 10 to 80% in about 17 minutes on a 350 kilowatt charger, of which there are nearly 400 in Australia right now. However, I've lived with a whole bunch of various EVs, including IONIQ 5s and the wonderful N model, and finding a 350 kilowatt charger that actually charges to that level was nearly impossible. Look, just in case, schedule around about an hour to charge from 10 to 80%. You should be okay. And anyway, if you can charge at home or at work, that's absolutely perfect. But if you're like me and live in an apartment that does not allow any kind of EV charging at all, it can be a massive nightmare. And this is something to consider with EV ownership. As wonderful as these can be, depending on your lifestyle, it might not make any sense to you whatsoever, no matter how cheap these are getting. Speaking of which, how cheap are they getting? That's a really good question, Adam. Would you care to answer it? Yeah, mate, I'll answer it, no problem at all. Listen, if you bought one of these brand new, you're going to want to skip ahead a few seconds because this could get a little depressing. Brand spanking new here in Australia, and ignoring the N model, these have ranged from just under $70,000 to just over $90,000. But on the used market, these currently kick off from the low 30s. We're talking about a car that's about 5 years old, around about 50,000 Ks on the clock, and it's dropped $40,000 or more in that time. That's insane. Granted, the used market tops out at around about the mid $70,000 region. That's going to get you a car that's basically brand spanking new. All of this can be incredibly depressing if you bought a brand new one, but brilliant news if you're buying one used, because even one of these at about $45,000, that is so much car for the money. Although, with the onslaught of tech-loaded new cars coming from China for outrageously cheap prices, only time's going to tell what happens to the depreciation curve as the years go on. Also, there are other costs to consider as well. Let's talk insurance. Insurance on an EV is generally substantially more than, say, on an equivalently sized hybrid. Plus, when it comes to charging, those prices can vary, let alone if you have to install solar panels or a charger in your house. The costs can blow out. Basically, what we're trying to say here is that, yeah, you might save money by not having to put petrol in your car anymore. Look, as we always say, EVs are an absolute no-brainer for some, and they make absolutely no sense for others. Everyone's situation varies so dramatically. And we haven't even spoken about battery degradation yet. And what's the story with all these ICCU and battery failures anyway? I can't tell you about any of this because I'm not qualified to. You know who is though? It's Jim.
Yes, the biggest problem here is the ICCU. Look, what is it and what does it do? Its first job is to convert AC to DC power, so it can be stored in the car's battery. Its second job is to convert high voltage power from the car's main battery into 12-volt power, which charges the second battery and runs all the car's accessories. Its third job is to control the vehicle to load or V2L system so it can power external devices. Now, when the ICCU fails, it typically stops charging the 12-volt system, and subsequently the car basically won't boot up, and it won't start, and it won't drive, and you're on a tow truck. Now, obviously all of these ICCU issues are still covered by warranty, and we have it on very good authority that Hyundai are actively sorting out this problem, and you would expect that future models that it just won't be an issue at all. And the good news here is it's only affecting about less than 2% of vehicles. That means more than 98% of these are totally fine. Now, just looping back to the 12-volt battery system, that's the other issue owners are experiencing here. That battery, even if the ICCU is okay, owners are finding that battery is just dead flat from parasitic draw and software complications. Now, a good quality aftermarket AGM battery does very much help this complication, and Hyundai are constantly doing software updates to improve battery management. My hot tip here is scan the QR code or hit the link below and get yourself a good quality AGM battery from Automotive Superstore. Actually, no matter what part or accessory you need, Automotive Superstore is the place to go. They carry hundreds of thousands of parts and they make it very easy. Just put your rego into their website and it'll show you everything they have for your vehicle. Now, the other problem you might see on your IONIQ 5 is a drive shaft related issue. There are some reports of those actually cracking and breaking. Again, they're all being done under warranty and there is an active recall on these to get them all fixed. Very low numbers are being affected, so it's hardly an issue at all. Now, as far as battery degradation goes, look, ignore the EV haters online. Battery degradation is not going to be an issue for many years to come. But if you're looking at one of these, make sure all of the ICCU updates have been done. Make sure the drive shaft recall has been attended to, and get the 12-volt battery checked properly. Don't just assume it's okay because the vehicle starts and runs. They do fail suddenly when they go, because when they go, you're going to be stuck.
So if you can make EV ownership work for your lifestyle, we highly recommend checking out a used IONIQ 5. And we strongly recommend looking at a used one instead of a new one. Sorry, Hyundai. With how steep depreciation is and how good even the early models of the IONIQ 5 can be, the extra cost doesn't really provide you a better vehicle. So save your money and buy used. Ideally, get a post-2025 model so you get the extra bells and whistles. But even when it comes to the early base models like this, as long as it's had all the updates done, this is really all the EV you'll ever need. Still, make sure you get a full pre-purchase inspection carried out, find out as much as you can about the vehicle's history. Go to ReDriven.com and check out the full cheat sheet on this. We've listed out all the common problems so you can refer to it easily. And if it ticks all those boxes, snap one up. Although, you should probably see what the competition has to offer before you do that. And in the meantime, hit that subscribe button and tell all your mates about ReDriven. Honestly, just doing that helps us out so much. But one of the most welcome changes.
Now, what is it? What does it does?